Yes,
You
of course.
just mentioned that in front of Allah, a male and a female, they are equal. But there is a hadith in which Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned that a woman's religious responsibility is half of that of a man, and so is her intelligence.
He doesn't say it's half. He says it's deficient. It's naqisat. This is the hadith of Sa'id ibn what's his name? Khudayr, is it? Yeah, in Sahih Muslim, where he says when the Prophet Muhammad he stated, you know, that women are naqisat wa aql wa din. Question is it talking about specific women, or is it talking about those ones he was talking about, some women that are not good to them? Because he mentions in this particular hadith the ones that yakfurna al-ashir, that they're ungrateful to their husbands. And in another hadith, the Prophet Muhammad he stated that these types of women, this archetype of women, the ungrateful woman archetype, if you try and be so good to them, they will say you've never done anything good for me. So there is an archetype of an ungrateful woman who is, the Prophet refers to as yakfurna al-ashir, and they will be populating the hellfire because they are ingrates. There are particular women that in the home they don't show gratitude to their husbands or to their, generally even, they're ingrates. So these particular women are naqisat wa aql wa din. Now, all women are naqisat din in the sense that they have days where they don't pray. Everyone knows that, okay? And they're not held to account for that because la yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wus'aha. That Allah does not hold to account more than it can handle. And in fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Qur'an very explicitly mentions in many verses that the spiritual equality between men and women, that Allah does not let to waste any good deed of any of you who do good deeds from man or woman, and both of you are from one another. Allah mentions in the Qur'an also that the mu'mins, man and woman, the believers, man and woman, the praying ones, the man and woman, the charitable ones, the man and woman, وَالْحَافِظِينَ فُرُوجَهُمْ وَالْحَافِظَاتِ, and so on and so on. أَعَدَّ اللَّهُ لَهُمْ مَغْفِرَةً وَأَجْرًا عَظِيمًا, that Allah has prepared for them forgiveness and great reward. Question is this an impulse which is generalized to the entire woman community? In other words, are all women naqisat aql and din, or is it some women? Now you could interpret this hadith to say no, it's actually those ones who yakfurna al-ashir, those ones who show ingratitude in the marriage. Or you could say, and this seems to be the opinion of the vast majority of those who exegeted this particular hadith, that all women have a naqs, or a lesser ability in aql. Now what is aql? There is a difference between aql and ilm. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions in the Quran, chapter number 58, يَرْفَعَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. That Allah, he raises among you those who have believed among you and the ones who have been given knowledge in degrees. So knowledge is the thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ. That Allah, in the Quran, it states that only the ones who are truly have ilm are the ones who truly believe Allah. That Allah raises in ranks those who have knowledge, etc., etc., where the whole world is cursed except for, the alim and the one who's... So the ilm in Islam is praised highly. And there's nothing in the religion of Islam to indicate that men have a higher ability or propensity to have more knowledge than women. But there is definitely something, and this hadith, it could be used as an evidence to indicate they have more aql. Now, what does the word aql mean? The word aql comes from the Arabic word iqal. And iqal is literally the thing that people put around their head. Have you ever seen this kind of... And basically in the animal, in the horse or something like that, it's the thing which you control the horse, whether it goes left or right. So this is aql. The opposite of it is jahl. And jahl is not just ignorance. That's false. Jahl is a lack of ability to control your emotions. This hadith, therefore, is saying that simply men, for the most part, are less emotionally driven than women. Now, this might sound controversial, but I actually done a particular, study, my own kind of social experiment, where I picked up the words of Simone de Beauvoir in her book, The Second Sex. And she actually states this very candidly in her book, in the chapter number 2 of biology, where she states that women are more emotional than men. She used almost exactly the same language, and she even went into detail about how and why women are more emotional than men.
Bullshit baffles brains. And you'll always find them sitting there with a bunch of books behind them. These guys with the books behind their backs talking a bunch of nonsense, advancing non-arguments, for me, is always a vindication of that verse from the Qur'an, the donkey with a bunch of books at his back. on his back. So let me quickly recap what he is actually saying. Now, the lady caller who you asked a very fair question. She's raising a hadith, not a Qur'an verse, contradicting every single verse in the Qur'an, because there is no verse. In fact, he cited some verses where the Qur'an clearly places men and women on an even level spiritually as well as intellectually. Now look, it would be so easy to say that hadith contradicts the Qur'an and there is no basis to such a hadith and that we can reject it and move on. But, of course, hadithists are also those who believe that the Qur'an is naqis. So they are actually the same people who say women are naqis or deficient are, funny enough, the same people that say the Qur'an is deficient. Right, so they defend the hadith, and the way they defend the hadith is by arguing that the Qur'an is deficient, and you need the hadith for the Qur'an to be workable. Now, of course, we take a completely opposite position. But let me just quickly, why do they maintain? Why are they obsessed with this position of theirs? And I'll tell you why. You see, the reason is if this whole hadith business is put in its right category as historical interest, of informational interest, but not of religious, spiritual, or legal value. If that was done, they would lose all their teeth. They would become toothless dogs, because the hadith gives them teeth. It gives them justification. It gives them reason for existing. And if you remove the hadith, their existence falls away, because the Qur'an is a book that requires not storytelling and entertainment and amusement, as does most of the hadith. Amusement, entertainment. The Qur'an requires the more difficult human activity of reflection, of accounting, of making sense, trying to understand. Exercise, you need to make an effort. And that is the problem with these people, is that they want to keep Islam in the story realm or in the intellectual gymnastics realm, where they can play their intellectual gymnastics, right, as we've seen now. Now, quickly look at the few arguments that he raises. The first argument that he raises is that, well, because women can't pray all the time or can't fast all the time, that makes them naqis, so they have less opportunity to serve God. Now, for me, that would be a terribly unfair Allah that tells women you can't salah and then holds it against them, when Allah says that no person shall be dealt with in the least bit of injustice. So there can be no injustice to them, and that would be an injustice if we are reckoned according to the time that we could do these acts of devotion, like whatever, salah, fasting, etc. Okay, now number one, let me first say that there is nothing in the Quran that says that women cannot fast or women cannot make salah. That is a completely man-made innovation. It is not in the Quran. My friends, please don't get angry with me when I tell you stuff is not in the Quran. I'm stating a fact. The fact that women cannot fast, should not fast when they are in the period, that does not appear in the Quran. Nowhere does it refer to religious observations or religious duties that cannot be done. So that is the first point there that is raising is already bogus. There's no basis in the Quran. It is hadith substantiating hadith. It is self-referential. The second point he then makes is that women are more emotional. And because they are more emotional, emotionalism is equated with jahiliyyah, with jahl. And he contrasts aql with jahl. Aql means intellect or intelligence, and jahl means emotionalism or unintelligence. Now for that he makes that claim without really any proof. Now, I'd like some of you to tell me whether that is relevant to the question. Is the hadith is saying, first of all, right, I'm not granting that assertion, but what I'm saying is that how does intellect make you a more religious person? Because human beings are of various levels of intellect. That's just a fact. Some people are able to put things together much faster in their minds. Other people, take more time. It's the way we are engineered, as we are not all exactly the same. Those who put things together slightly slower might be more efficient or might be more meticulous in the way they put things together in their minds or the way they solve things. But that is irrelevant to the question, first of all. The question of whether women are naqis, are deficient in their religion. That question would be irrelevant, but he makes it relevant. Now, first of all, there's nothing in the Qur'an that makes that assertion. There's nothing in the Qur'an that makes that assertion. In fact, everything that I've experienced in my life, and I'm still learning every day. I've seen so many women in the workplace that I've worked with, my family, my extended family, thousands of women that I'm aware of. They are as intelligent or more intelligent than me. And I always find myself to be of average intelligence. I can really make the assessment that I am a junior to so many of the women that I dealt with. Women have different interests. Women don't like engineering. They don't like IT, but they love things that require a lot more finesse, a lot more nuance, a lot more a subtle understanding of issues. And it's called emotional intelligence sometimes. There's sometimes a greater maturity in women. So I don't know what he means, but let me get to the final conclusion here. And that is that, you see, because the Arab man, and this is a reflection of the Arab man, this guy, Muhammad Hejab, the typical Arab man, he is wallowing in his own chauvinist fantasies, floating on a little murky lake, a little murky puddle of his own chauvinism. And he imagines himself to be some sort of superior being on earth. But if you really look at the Arab women, if I turn my attention to Gaza, if I look at what these Arab men around Gaza, the Arab men of Egypt, the people of Muhammad Hejab, 80 million Arabic speakers, 1 million people who are Hafizul Qur'an, know the Qur'an by heart. Cairo, a place with apparently, 100,000 mosques. You see, for me, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. We judge a tree by the fruits and by the shade it produces. And if a tree does not produce any fruit and neither does it produce any shade, then it is a water thief, my friends. Then that tree is a water thief. And the Arab man is an oxygen thief. The Arab man that maintains and promotes and perpetuates these lies is nothing but an oxygen thief and an imposter today. And my request would be that you should, as soon as possible, find proper teachers and proper people to learn the world, to learn Islam, to learn the Qur'an from, and take your attention away from these people, because these people are not good for you at all.